All right, let's just start with the brain, okay? 100 billion neurons, roughly, right? And you got different like clusters of neurons, communities of neurons that are assigned to like feeling your tip of your index finger, you becoming aware of your local in space and time. There's just different compartments that do different things, right? And then you have different circuits in your brain that are connected to every person in your life, every object that you can recognize, every place you've been. If it's known, you have circuitry in your brain to reflect your environment, right? So then when people are living in stress, and stress, again, is when the brain and body are knocked out of balance. The arousal of those chemicals causes us to try to control and predict everything in our life. So we begin to shift our attention from one person to another problem, to another thing, to another object, to another meeting, to another place. And as you start to activate these circuits in your brain that are associated with all of those elements, the arousal of the stress hormones causes these different compartments to fire like a lightning storm in the cloud. The brain is firing very incoherently. And when the brain is incoherent, we're incoherent. And when the brain isn't working right, we're not working right. And people get stuck in these aroused states. You become what you practice. Yeah, okay. You will have a shortened attention span. Why? Because that's what you're practicing. So that imbalanced brain is looking for immediate gratification or something to take away a feeling, right? A disturbance. So then when you're living in stress, the primitive nervous system of the fight or flight nervous system, when you start feeling a danger or a threat, causes you to narrow your focus on the cause, right? If there's a predator around the corner or something moving in the bushes, you freeze, your heart starts to race, your adrenaline starts to pick up, your respiratory rate changes, blood is sent to the extremities, you're gonna run, fight, or hide. That's it. And you're in survival. Well, people spend 70% of their life living in that aroused state, and their brainwaves are way too fast. And so they're focusing on everything material. Our research shows if you can break that habit of narrowing your focus on everything material and using your senses, because stress heightens the senses that cause us to become materialist, then we begin to experience separation, like you're there and I'm here. But in the quantum world, there's nothing that's separate. Everything's connected. It's our senses that fool us into this illusion. So our research shows that when you teach a person to go from a narrow focus on matter or on an object or a thing and broaden their focus and open their focus, to go from a convergent focus to a divergent focus, the act of sensing nothing but space, of nothing, begins to cause those different compartments of the brain that were once subdivided to begin to synchronize. More communities begin to resonate at the same frequency. And what sinks in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, the person starts feeling more whole. They start feeling more like themselves. Keep doing that. Now you have a significant amount of brain changes in those 100 billion neurons. They're all clapping at the same time. And if you have an audience of 10,000 people or a stadium of 50,000 people and everybody's clapping at the same time, that type of coherence, that type of cadence, that type of rhythm creates energy. And all of a sudden, the energy starts going up in the brain now. It's like taking the dimmer switch and going, let's turn it up. And all of a sudden, you're more aware. All of a sudden, you're more conscious. All of a sudden, you're more clear. You're more poised. You're more spontaneous. You're more clear. Because when the brain is coherent and it's working right, you're working right. And you got new ideas. Now, if you're in the staff meeting and the person that you despise is talking the entire time and you're sitting there and you're thinking in your mind how many ways you would like to choke this person, but you can't choke them, you can't fight, you can't leave the meeting, or you can't hide under the table. You got those stress hormones pumping in your body, and your heart is racing because it wants to run, it wants to fight, it wants to hide. You're actually producing the chemistry to do one of those three things, but you're stepping on the gas and you're stepping on the brake. And now the heart starts beating incoherently, and energy leaves the heart. Why? Because when you have two waves that are incoherent and they begin to interfere with one another, they're going to flatten out. So you lose energy in your heart, you stop trusting yourself, you stop trusting in your future. Same thing in the brain. Brain's incoherent, you have those waves interfering, there's less energy in the brain because when they interfere, they create a flat line. When they're coherent, all of a sudden the waves get bigger. The higher the amplitude, the more energy there is. So now we teach people how to practice creating heart coherence, not just hey, Chris, try a little gratitude. No, I got a little device on you hooked up to a computer, and I'm watching to see if you're doing it and you're not doing it. If you're not doing it, I'm going to tell you you're not doing it. But I can say to you, let's turn it down, or heighten the sensors and say, Drama, you're getting closer. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to lower it a little bit more, and I go, come on, give me a little more. Come on, open your heart to life a little bit more. And you can start controlling your breathing. And when you control your breathing, you control your brain waves. And as you start feeling safe, you move out of that survival system, and energy starts moving into the heart. Now, once the heart starts to beat coherently, it's like banging a big drum. There's a field effect. Yeah. It's like dropping a pebble in a calm surface of a pool. There's a wave effect. And when the heart starts beating coherently, it begins to produce a measurable magnetic field that's up to 3 meters wide. Your heart is electric, and now it's producing a field, an energy, a frequency. And that frequency carries information. You can lay the thought of your future, of your wealth, of your health on that frequency. The frequency of suffering can't carry the thought of your wealth. It carries the thought of different thoughts of suffering. So then energy has to make it to our heart for us to begin to create. So then if a person is living in survival and an addict to those emotions, living in the stress response all of the time, the rush of adrenaline becomes their source of energy, then you got to teach that person how to break that addiction. And just like any addiction, the body's going to have cravings. Come on, just a little suffering, just a little judgment, a little anger. The body just wants to feel it so it can return back to its state. So then it takes effort, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it. But when people free themselves from the chains of those emotions and the incoherence, wow, coherent heart, coherent brain. How do you create a future? Clear intention, that's a brain function. Elevated emotion, that's a heart function. So now if you can produce both of those, now you have an energetic pattern. Your body's actually emitting different information, different energy. And when there's a synchronization between your brain and heart, once there's energy in the heart, guess where it goes? Straight up to the brain. Now the heart is amplifying the brain. And again, remember that trauma that's existing in the amygdala. The research shows once the heart starts to open, it resets the baseline of trauma in the brain. So the person goes, hey, I feel so amazing. I forgive my father. Yeah. Now, he was an alcoholic. He didn't know what he was doing, but I feel so incredible. Yeah. I don't really care. I bless him. I'm so happy. And when people reach this point where they feel so self-regulated that they no longer need anything outside of them to do it, now they're free because they're not going to need the drug, the computer game, the whatever it is to regulate. They just know how to do it now. So now they're going to be more conscious in their life. And the key is to not have a great meditation and then get up on the freeway and flip people off and then, judge your coworker. I mean, you just return back to the old self. The job is to get your brain and body right. Get up, keep that energy up, and maintain your modified state of mind and body your entire day. And if you can, get ready, because the synchronicities, you're going to synchronize your energy with a new future, and you're going to start seeing feedback in your environment. And that feedback is like, hey, dude, you're on to something. Go again. And you go again, and here comes another one. Now, here's the cool part. I say that we already know how to do this. I say you know how to do this. You couldn't be who you are today or get where you are today without knowing some of this innately. But you trusted yourself. You trusted the process. You didn't excuse yourself because you had a head injury or excuse yourself because of your past or where you're from. You just said, I'm going to go at it again. I'm going to hold on to that vision. And it's so much easier to forget our vision than remember it. But if you keep reminding yourself of that vision, and who you're going to become, right? It's not the wealth, it's not the health, it's not the success, it's who you become in the process, right? So the end product of all of this is that you're more in love with life, or you're more in love with yourself. And when you are, guess what you do? You give. You go, I feel so incredible, I feel so whole, I don't need anything anymore because I'm not in lack. Wow, imagine a world like that.